Hello everyone. Today I'm going to give you a preview of Imperial Commander 2. So, what is Imperial Commander 2 and why did we upgrade it? Well, if you're watching this video, I'm going to assume that you are already familiar with the first Imperial Commander app that we have that's been out for a little over a year now. What Imperial Commander 2 does, it brings the principles of the first Imperial Commander and updates it with some of the features of the official app by FFG, where you have a 3D map to interact with, and the game leads you through a narrative mission that will be put together by anyone, because there's an editor to go along with this as well. So what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to fire up the editor, I'm going to create a mission, and we're going to load it into IC 2.0. And fingers crossed, may the force be with us. Hopefully it works, because this is very early preview. All right, here we go. This is the opening screen of for the editor. I'm going to create a new mission, and I'll be pausing and unpausing this video as I record, as I figure out exactly what I want to do with this demo, because I haven't really planned it out at all. This first tab, well, first of all, the editor's sectioned off into different tabs, and I will go over each of these in turn. The first one is the mission properties, where you can give it your name, the type of mission. You can check these off just like the official app has. I mean, not just the app, but the actual board game. If you were to just play it on the board without an app, it has all this. And usually some of these options are from the original, our first Imperial Commander app. We can modify the threat, optional deployments, which factions you want to include or exclude, allies, all that stuff. You can pause the video and take a closer look. I'm not going to go through every single option. We'll be here way too long. On the left side panel, we have our triggers and our events, which is really what drives this app, what drives a mission. And we will definitely be going through those because we'll be setting up a number of them. The second tab is map sections. And a map section is basically a block of tiles on your board game. So let's say you open a door, a new map section will reveal itself. That's a map section. Next tab, we have the editor, the actual map editor, and you can click to pan this around and zoom in and out, and there's some other handy little shortcuts for selecting items and zooming right in on an item. We'll get to all that. When we get back to here, we'll be still seeing those features. Enemy groups, this is where you set up your initial groups, your reserved groups, and you can completely customize them. You can change the name, you can change the normal instructions that they would usually have, that we have in the game. Change their deployment point. You can make a specific deployment point, or just use whatever the currently active deployment point is, and the app will handle all of that. Another neat thing we have, this is actually something new that we put in a little bit in the other app, and that's the traits. Now, traits are target traits, I should say. And this is mostly for villains, I believe. Like a force user villain will tend to go toward another force user rebel. It will want to attack them first before any other type of rebel. And you can change those just like everything else, who they target. So you can clear all these and they're force user. So now when you add this group, let's use Stormtrooper. A Stormtrooper hates force users. So you would add the initial group, and now in the game, when this group deploys, it will only want to target force users, because that's what we checked here. And finally, the last tab is your general properties. It just gives you more of an information panel. How many tiles are in your mission, how many entities. Entities are deployment points, doors, tokens, terminals, all that good stuff. How many triggers are in the game and in the mission, and how many events. It's just information on here. But on the right side, we have something a little more exciting. Event groups and random map entity groups. Event groups are, and we'll get to events, like I said, but events make things happen. They react to things, they're triggered, they do stuff like deploy enemies, activate a map section, activate individual tiles, uh, make things visible or invisible on the map. They do things, and there's a lot. They do a lot more than that. We'll touch on some of those today. But event groups allows you to put a number of events into a group, have this group trigger, and then it will randomly pick one of the events in the group to actually fire. Now, the next time this event group is triggered, it will pick another one, another event that's in the group, and fire it. And you even have the option to mark the events in the group as unique, where they only fire once, or not, where they'll just keep firing in truly random fashion, where they could literally fire 2 or 3 times in a row if that's how the RNG works out for it. But by default, events in a group are unique, so they only fire once. And once the group is spent, it will no longer fire any events in the group unless you have that checked. Repeatable, which means it will reset the group and it's able to trigger all the events in the group again. Random entity groups are somewhat similar, except it applies to entities on the map. Again, entities are terminals, doors, deployment points, anything, you name it. Now, you can choose a number of entities that are in the map. Right now we have none, obviously. We haven't manipulated the map at all. But they would appear here in the list. You would add individual entities to the list. Let's say terminals. Let's say you have 3 terminals in the mission. In this, they don't even have to be in the same map section. They can be spread across the whole mission, across different map sections, even map sections that aren't even activated and visible yet. So you would add your three terminals here, and each terminal does something different in the mission. And this is a way to jazz your missions up and make them different each time. So let's say our terminals, each one does something a little different. Let's say one deploys an enemy group, another one opens some door that's somewhere else in the mission that you can't get through until you hit that terminal, and the third terminal does whatever. Now, normally in a mission, these 3 terminals would be in the same places in the map every single time you play it. But with a random entity group, you can put those 3 terminals here, and when the mission starts, it will look at those 3 items, in this case, take their positions, and randomly allocate those positions to each other. So when you play your mission again and again, it'll still have those 3 terminals in the mission, but they won't be in the same place. They will all be each other's positions in the map. So you may know where the 3 terminals appear, but you won't know which one it is. So it makes the game a little random, a little more replayable. That's what random map entity groups are for. So let's go ahead and start. We'll go to the map editor, and I'm going to think for a moment and figure out what I want this demo to show. All right. Before I get into designing the map, the first thing I'm going to go over are those triggers and the events, just briefly. The trigger, easy, hit plus, or also up here, hit the plus trigger. A trigger, you give it a name. I'll tell you what the global thing is now. Okay. If you have a lot of triggers and events in the game, I added this mechanism called global. And what that does is, if it's global, it will always appear in this list, all of them, all together. Like if you have dozens of items, they will all appear here. If you uncheck global, the trigger or event will only be available in the current map section that you have selected here. When there's only one right now, because it's just the starting section, the default one. But as you add more map sections, they will appear here in the list, and you can edit those and give them different names. So back to the trigger. If you uncheck global, this trigger will now only appear, if you turn global off, it will only appear for the map section that it was created in. So if I switch to another map section, it will disappear. It will disappear and reappear as you select the map section that object actually belongs to. And you can edit this, go back to this, make it global again, and then show global items, and it'll appear as a global item again. But that's just for managing the mission. If it gets too unwieldy, like too many global items here, it just gets crazy. You can just think of it like a folder. The items only appear in whatever map section or folder that you have selected at the time. All right, so that took too long there. So you give it a name, global or not. Okay, triggers do two things basically. They hold a value, and you can change the value that they start with. You can change their maximum value or not. If they don't have a maximum, they just keep increasing every time it's triggered. You can have it reset to 0 upon triggering, so to go from 0 to 1 to 0 to 1 to 0 to 1 over and over every time it's triggered. And we'll see why you'd want to do something like that when we get to events. And maybe you just want to not deal with the value. You don't care about what value it is. You just want to fire an event when this trigger is fired, and that's where you would select the event there to trigger. Now, events are pretty cool. They do a lot. They do all the heavy lifting in the mission. An event by itself is generic. It doesn't really do anything except show text when it's triggered. If you don't touch anything else and you trigger this event, it will do nothing but show text if you've written text here to show. And it will tell you right there if you've actually set text or not, so you don't have to guess. Give it a unique name. This is for your use only, and internally it uses global identifiers. You don't have to worry about naming the same thing on several items accidentally. It doesn't matter. It doesn't use the name to identify things in the app itself. This is just for you to keep track of what you're doing. Now, I said a bit ago that events are triggered by triggers, which is true, but events also react to things in the game. And here's where that trigger value comes into place. I call them triggered by, and in this case it's additional triggers triggered by general triggers, and we'll get here in a moment. So you want to add an existing trigger that we've created earlier, and you want this event to fire when that trigger has a value of, let's say, 4. So when that trigger that we called new trigger fires 4 times, it'll get its value incremented each time the trigger is triggered. When it reaches 4, this event, which is constantly listening to triggers, all trigger values, it'll know when this trigger reaches 4 and it will fire itself. So that's what triggered by additional triggers does. Events also react to different things that happen within the game. The start of a round. So let's say at the start of round 4, you want to deploy some troops. You would hit that. At the start of each round, end of each round, end of round with a number, after all enemy groups are defeated, all heroes are wounded, etc., etc. And I think these speak for themselves. Hero wounded, hero withdrawals, ally defeated, and you can choose which one. Now, events can also be repeatable so that you can fire more than once. You can also mark any event to fire at the end of the current round. And finally, here's that global scope thing. It's just like how triggers I explained horribly in the last section. So you can decide how this event reacts to these triggered by mechanisms. You can have it react when only all of them are satisfied, or if you select any, this event will fire when any of these are satisfied. So let's say you have all groups are defeated, or by the end of round 5, and you hit any. So when either at the end of round 5 or when all enemy groups are defeated, will this event fire. Now if you hit all, then this event will only fire if you're at the end of round 5 and all enemy groups have been defeated. So that's how that works. Gives you a lot of control over how and when events fire. Now, here's the real meat of the events. This is where you actually do stuff, and it's called event actions. And you can queue up as many as you want for a single event. And I'll show you some of them. Hit the plus, and we have different categories. We have general, event actions, deployment, group manipulations, and map and token. So starting with general, mission management, you can do certain things to the mission itself, like increase the round counter, pause deployment, unpause deployment, end the mission, and other various things. You can change the mission information. That's just text. And within the playback app, it will actually notify you visually that the mission info text has changed. We have changing the objective. So you can, again, there's a nice little notifier in the app that tells you when the objective has been changed. You can modify a variable. So those triggers that I talked about, you can add it here. You can modify its value with the plus and minus column, or you can set its value directly. Like let's say we need to set this immediately to 5 for whatever reason. You can do that here. Modify threat. That just modifies the threat in the game. A question prompt. This one's neat. This is where you can actually throw up a text box. You can type your text here and select a trigger that you want to fire, add it to the list, change the button text. Like let's say we want to ask the players open the door, and for the text here you can do yes, which will fire this trigger, and we'll just do a click to no trigger. And this is if you hit no. Now in the game, when this event fires, it will show the text, open the door, and it will create 2 buttons that the players can click on yes or no. Clicking yes will fire this trigger, clicking no will fire that trigger, which will in turn do whatever they need to do, fire events and so forth. So that's pretty powerful. Text box, just a bunch of text. Now here's the fun stuff. Enemy deployment. This is where you can create an enemy group to deploy and activate on the map. Now there's all kinds of options. You change its default instructions, either append it to the top or bottom of the default, or completely replace with your own custom instructions. Rename it, like maybe it's some kind of a big boss guy and you want to give him a special name. So you can he'll actually be renamed in the app when players right-click on the card. They can view the card. It'll have your custom name there. And all these little options, if are they able to redeploy, can they even be defeated, a bunch of things here. When they are defeated, you can either fire a trigger or fire an event. There's those primary or priority target traits again, which I went over, who they target, who they prefer to target. And usually like during optional deployments, they don't cost the Imperial any threat to deploy them, but you can change that here. So you do want to deduct the group's cost from threat, and you can even modify it. So if the card costs like 3 to deploy, you can put -1 to make it even less expensive. And deployment points, I kind of went over this for the initial groups. You can choose whatever the active deployment point is, or you can specify one if you've created multiple deployment points in the mission. So that one's pretty powerful. Ally deployments, optional deployments, random deployments. These are very similar to Imperial Commander as we have it now. With the optional, you can hit random and give it how many points you want to allot to the random deployment. Add groups right to the hand. Group manipulation. This is if you just want to change the instructions for a particular group, change the target. Like maybe all stormtroopers will just go after bounty hunters or brawlers. Ready and exhaust a group. That obvious what that is. Maps and tokens. Map management. This is where you will make map sections present themselves, become active. And all map entities within those map sections will also become active if they're marked as active in the editor beforehand. Because you may want something to not actually be active and visible when the map section, the owner map section itself activates. So it will respect that. And just the same, you can also deactivate a map section or individual tiles in a map section. And finally, modify map entity. And this is where we haven't added any yet, but when you have those entities in a map, again, an entity is a door, a token, a deployment point, etc., terminals, you'd add those here, and this is where you can mark whether you want them to activate or deactivate. So if you had something that was not activated and you want to make it appear suddenly, you can add that here and mark activated, and it will then present itself in the app. And you can even change its color. If it, like, let's say a terminal changes from red to blue, if you want, for whatever reason, it becomes a blue target, you can actually change its color here too. That's modify map entity. And that's events for you. I just realized why my explanation of global items was fouling up earlier is because I just deleted one. I had 2 sections that I had created called new section, and I kept clicking on the wrong one. That's why they weren't appearing as I was expected it to. Anyways, when you do remove a mission, you have the option to remove all the associated tiles, entities, triggers, and events that were created for that map section. But you may want to leave all those intact. Like, let's say you spent a lot of time on some of those events and you don't want to lose them just because you want to remove the owner's map section. So you can uncheck that and it will preserve those and just delete the tiles. I mean the map section itself, I'm sorry. You can preserve everything else. So we're going to blow everything away though, because we want to start from scratch. There's nothing. Empty, empty. Map editor. Press T. Opens up your tile gallery. And here's where you can start selecting, and you can hover to zoom on each tile. And double clicking will insert that tile directly. X to delete. T, you can right click on tiles. It will add them to this queue down here, the tile queue. As you right click them, you can remove them. Right, boom, 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 whatever. And then insert to queue, it will insert all of them at once. Okay, now let's actually try to create a little mission. All right, what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with the hallway. which will rotate, and that's going to transition into the outside, the desert area. So I'll insert that cue, zoom in. So you can rotate these just by right-clicking or the brackets. The green bars, that's where the connectors are. That's where you can connect to other tiles. So rotate that. And this is just the center, this cross. Doesn't matter. You can make this mission anywhere you want. Doesn't matter. So we're going to connect those. We're going to add a door. And again, you can rotate doors. I'm going to drop that there. And we're going to create a little space highlight. And we're going to make this 2 wide by 2 height. And that'll be our rebel starting location. And we're also going to create a deployment point. And we're going to make this green because the mission in the books, they always use a green one. It doesn't matter. It matters not. You can make these any color you want. It matters not. It's for your reference only. And that will be hidden, just like the real app, just like when you play it on the board game or in the official app. Deployment points are not visible to the players, except when an enemy actually deploys on them. The app will briefly show the deployment point, so the players know where to put the characters on the board, the physical board. And we want this to be the active deployment point. So we're going to deployment points initially, they start inactive when you create them. So we want to be sure to hit yes. We want this to be active on the map when this mission starts. All right. And we can go ahead and change the name of this. We'll just put initial DP. And I'm going to go ahead and create an event here. This is going to be starting event. And I don't know what I want to do with it yet, but we're just going to create it. Oh, show global. Missions under starting event. We're going to make sure that's selected. This will fire off this event as soon as the mission starts in the app. So when the app starts, let's say we want to, I don't know, little welcome message. Hello and welcome. Next, remember all these events, actions will fire in turn, not simultaneously because that would be bonkers. It will wait till one event action finishes before going down the list of event actions. So after we show a little welcome message, let's make our first deployment. And we're going to use the good old Stormtrooper. And we're just going to use the active deployment point, which is the one we just created. We can also, now that we have one created, we can actually select it from the list if we wanted to. But it's the only one active right now, or it will be the only one active in our little demo for the time being. So we'll go ahead and just hit active deployment point. And, we're going to do something with this too. So it'll show a text box. It'll deploy a Stormtrooper on the active deployment point. And let's see. All right, we're going to do a mission marker. And it's going to be neutral, so we'll just leave that neutral. Grays, let's make it purple. Why not? I'm going to put that right there. And it's not going to be active yet because this is going to be a key card. So my idea here is when we defeat the Stormtrooper, he drops an ID card, which you then have to pick up and use on the door. So back into starting event, Stormtrooper, when he's defeated, sorry. I have to make the event first. So we're going to go ahead and create another event. Drop key card, which will actually, that's more indicative of what happens. It's trooper defeated. What we're going to do is modify a map entity, and we're going to make that key card activated. When you add a map entity to this list, it will pick up all of its existing properties and fill them in for you. So you don't have to guess, oh, what was it? Was it blue? Was it gray? No, it'll come up exactly as it was created in the maps. You don't have to guess. In this case, it started off as no because we changed it to no down here. But we want to show the key card, all right? And that's all that will do. Back into the starting event and the Stormtrooper. Now that we have the event created, that's what I wanted to do. When this trooper is defeated, it will fire the trooper defeated event, which will show that key card, the purple key card. Now, what happens when the players click on the key card? Well, just double click the entity, the token. Now it's our key card. And we want to ask the players, use key card. And we're going to, we don't have a trigger for it yet. So we're going to create a new trigger, use key card, and we don't have a, we'll have to come back and fill that in later, but we'll do that for now. Use key card, use the key card, yes. We do want to use the key card, and that will fire that trigger that we just created, use key card, which we'll be doing something with. I'm going to go ahead and change this door's name to main door. And we're going to create another event. Oh, and doors. Is this door open? No. So we're going to keep that at no. It's closed. So, use key card. Right. We have to create a new event. Open door. It's going to modify the map entity, the main door, add it, and activate it or open. In this case, yes, it's going to open the door. You hit OK, hit OK, and the key card will fire the event open door. As simple as that. Now, when that door opens, the rebels are going to be met with a whole lot of nothing. So, I think we want to create another map section. And that's active. It's purple. You double click on one to make it active, or select it here. Properties. We'll just call this section 2. Back to our map. And you notice the first section, I don't know if it's hard to tell, but it dimmed. It became dimmer, so you know you're not working in that section anymore. Tile gallery. And we want to desert. I want the desert at side B. Let's say you go, this one's fun. I'm just going to add that for now. And that's green at the bottom, green. This is all, they snap, so you don't have to worry about being precise. So we'll have to go back to our open door and add another event action. We want to, in this case, map management. You want to activate section 2. Hit OK. Done. Now the door will open, and then after that opens, it will activate our new map section we just created. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a couple terminals, and you can hit D to duplicate an entity. Like let's say you've set one up to do certain things, and you need another one that does the same thing, or maybe something similar. You don't want to click, 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 and set it up identically. You just hit D, and it will duplicate it. And everything about that will be duplicated along with it, and you can just go in and change what little you need to change. We're going to change this one to blue. And terminal 2, so we can keep track of what we're creating here. Terminal 1. And I think what we're going to do is you have to activate the 2 terminals in order to open a door that we'll put right there, and that will be door 2. All right, we'll need a trigger because clicking on these will set up a prompt to what do you want to do? You want to press the button. So let's set up the trigger beforehand. New trigger. Call it door trigger. Oops. And we're going to initial value 0 is fine. And since there's 2 of them, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to make each time this is triggered, it increases the value by 1, as I said previously about triggers. When it gets to 2, it'll fire an event that opens this door. So the event will be listening to this trigger value and react when it hits 2. So we'll put 2 as the maximum just to protect ourselves from accidentally going over that. And we don't have the event fired or set up yet, so we won't be setting it here anyways. Double click that, flip the switch, and this will fire the door trigger. Yes. Oh, and by default, when you create these prompts, you don't have to create one for cancel. The cancel button is created by default. Every prompt has a default cancel button. So if players click on an entity, it'll show this text and they can bug out. They don't have to commit to it. That's done for you. You just worry about the stuff that you want to happen for the real options that you want to present to the player. All right. And hitting this one. Again, flip switch, door trigger. That's when they hit yes. Now we're going to create another event. Open second door. And we're going to be listening for door trigger when it is a value of 2. So when this is 2, it will, I guess we'll need another map section now too. It'll open the door. So let's do that. Modify map entity, door 2, and that will become open. And we'll come back here to activate another map section. We can actually just hit the plus up here, add a map section. See how that dimmed? Because we just went into a new map section. Let's just change its name real quick. Section 3, and I think we'll probably end it with 3 sections. It's getting long already. Map editor, tile, get some desert. I don't know. Let's do this one. Oops, I moved the door. Okay, so this will be here. And let's see, let's think for a moment. Okay, when you open the second door, we're also going to do map management, activate that section 3. So the door will open and section 3 will activate when that trigger it reaches 2. And those triggers go up by clicking on the terminals and hitting yes. I'm going to go ahead and add back in section 2 here. See how that lit up and this one dimmed. We're going to go ahead and add another deployment point because as I end each turn, the app might throw some enemies at us. Let's put it, I don't know, let's make it here on the stairs, like some troopers come down. Whatever the app decides to throw at us, it'll appear here. And this is going to be not going to be active yet because we want to make sure, remember down here, when we have our initial little guy popping out, we want to make sure he appears here. So this will be the only deployment point active at the time. So we'll have to change, and then henceforth, we will only want this one, this deployment point to be active. So we're going to have to modify one of our events when the trooper is defeated. That's a great place to put that. Do we name this? Yeah, initial TP. So when the trooper is defeated, let's add another modify map entity. then initial DP, deactivate. It'll be activated? No, we want to deactivate it. So it will no longer be an active deployment point. And I guess since we're there, where is it? Oh, we didn't rename it. That's okay. New deployment point. That's the only other one we added. When I add that, it will make that one, yes, we do want it to activate. So it will deactivate that initial one and make that second deployment point we just created the new active deployment point. And just so you know, if there are multiple deployment points on the board that are active, the app will know to randomly choose one for you, so you don't have to worry about that. Done. And just for fun here, if there's no text associated with any entity that can be clicked, nothing will happen. It won't throw up any, like an empty text box. If there's no text, it won't even respond. So when you click on this door right now in the app, what would happen is nothing would happen. It wouldn't even say this is a big shiny door. So that's what we're going to do. If the players are curious about clicking on the door, we should probably at least give them a little feedback. This is a big shiny door that can't be opened. So nothing else will happen. We're not going to put any options. It's just going to be a text. And that's all it's going to say, is just to let the players know that, hey, you're going to have to find another way in. And the same thing for this door. This door is opened by the two terminals against the wall. Boop. Another small detail I just remembered, back to our little key card. I forgot I didn't make the key card disappear. Once you use it, you don't want it to still be there. You don't want them to think they have to manipulate it again. So I think that was open door. Yeah. So after they open the door, remember when they click on yes to use the key card, it's going to fire use key card, which triggers this event here, which will open the door, show the next map section, and we're going to want one more map entity, and that is the key card. We will want to just keep it at no, because we want to deactivate it. Because remember, by defeating the Stormtrooper, it becomes activated. So we're going to leave this at no, which is what it starts with, to deactivate it again. But because by the time this comes through, it will have been activated. So we'll leave that at no. That will turn it off. And you probably noticed this, and I didn't go over it yet, but if you need to change the order of any of these event actions, you can use these up-down arrows to change the order. Remember, these happen in sequence, one at a time, only when one completes. So if you're in need of a special ordering of things and you think of it later, you can just bump it up the list if you wanted to. Okay. All right, I just want to wrap this up. So let's go back to our section 3, and I think we're going to add another highlight. Let's make this, it is active, yes. Oh, see, we forgot to make this one as active. I do want that starting active. Green, no. Let's make this one red. No, let's make it blue. This is blue, victory. Or is that green for victory? I don't know. We're going to put this here, and height 2. And basically what we're going to do is end the mission when this is clicked on. So we'll end mission. Yay, you won. And this will do, where is it? No, mission management, end the mission. Now, right now in the app, it doesn't know what to do when you end the mission. It just knows that you ended the mission, because all these things are in the app, but I don't have any of the menus done as far as like setting up the mission. There's no mission setup screen yet, little details like that. So, and likewise, ending mission, there's nothing to go back to, because there's no main main screen selections screen for the mission yet. But this will at least end the mission as far as we know it when it triggers. And we'll need to fire that. And we'll ask some text so that when players get across this tile, they click on the highlight and mission. And we'll have to create a trigger. And mission. And then hit yes. And when they do activate that, it will do the end mission event we just created. Done. Now, hopefully this works. We'll go ahead and save it. Again, because I don't have any kind of a mission selection screen done, it's hard-coded to just load the mission called a test. So I'll just overwrite that. Yes, replace it, please. And then we'll scoot on over to Unity and fire up the app, and fingers crossed, hopefully this thing works. All right, ready to resume. I caught a couple, actually just one very minor little bug I had to fix real quick. And I thought I had another issue, but it turned out to be the way I did added something to the mission. Some data was missing because of the timing that I put it in. I'm not going to bother explaining too in depth. So we're going to go ahead and start the mission here. Set this full screen. And here we go. Silly me, I had it set to pause because of the hotkey from OBS. All right, now we'll start it. So there's our little text box that we threw up. Hit OK. Deploy the following group. This is an automatically generated text box whenever you set the mission to deploy any number of groups. It will, you don't have to worry about creating a text box and showing it, because you recall from the mission that we just created, we didn't create this box. We just said, hey, throw in a stormtrooper. So the app will actually handle this part for you, and it color codes it, makes it look nice. Now you can hit, anytime there's any kind of a UI up on the screen, you can always hit this little toggle over here to get rid of it, so you can manipulate the map and look and see underneath the UI. So deploy the following group, and it did. So there's the stormtrooper up there, and that goes away. There's our little highlight where we started our guys. I didn't put any kind of a notice. And in a real mission, you would have to flesh it out with all the instructions and everything. So we click on the door, and you can use the mouse wheel to scroll in and out. Right click to rotate, double click to navigate, middle click to reset the camera. So there's our little door. This is a big shiny door that cannot be opened. And we have a stormtrooper in front of us. So remember, when we defeat the stormtrooper, he's going to drop a key. We use the key card to open the door, which will open section 2. So let's go ahead and mark him as defeated, even though we didn't go through, whatever. Either way, defeat. So there's our key. He went away. We defeated him. Use the key card. See, there's where we can automatically puts the cancel button. Yes. That disappears. You notice the door opened, and the next map section revealed itself. Everything pops into view. And here's the second door. This door is opened by the 2 terminals against the wall. And, end mission, it's calm, threat has increased, no deployment, whatever. And of course, these guys, you can wound them and do other things. So the door is activated by these terminals. Here's the gray, and there's the blue one. We gave it 2 different colors. Oh, I still have to finish the model on that. Put a little texture or something. Fill that in. So flip the switch. Yes. Okay, that increased the counter on the trigger by 1, if you'll recall. This one, flip the switch. Yes. The door opened. Map section 3 revealed itself. We walk in, activate that blue tile to say, hey, we got out. End the mission. Yes. Yay, you won. There's that text box we captured. The mission has ended, and Saga app does realize that you ended the mission, but again, no kind of menu screens. And that's it. That's our little mission. All that for this. And I hope you enjoyed it. And there's more to come. The app is almost finished. It's nearing completion. We're at the finishing line. And all the major features are in, all the different event actions, the gameplay. There's just a few little details I need to add, like when entities appear on the board, I'm going to have just like when troops deploy, it automatically generates a little box that says where and what just went on the board. So I'll have to put that in for any kind of map entities that appear. And of course, the mission setup screen, so you can put your little options, like turn this feature on and off, just like from the first Imperial Commander. It has the fame system that we put in. I didn't show you that little thing, but we could have changed the mission info in the middle of the mission. Yeah, that's it. That's it. And end of mission, all those little things like reinforcements, onslaught, that works identically in this version of the app, Imperial Commander 2. It'll handle that stuff the same. Deployment, like when you get a landing or it's calm, all this is the same. It's just now we have, got a random event thrown at us. Yikes. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you soon.